Ranking up in Overwatch 2 is an incredibly frustrating experience, especially right now. It seems like you have to win more than 80% of your games to consistently rank up. I want to share my simple process of how to review your own VODs and show you an example of how I do it right after. The first step is to pick a game that you feel you could have performed better in. The simplest way to do this is to find your most recent loss. But let's say, for instance, you've actually won the last 10 games in a row. The likelihood that you are here watching this video, if that's the case, is very slim, but I'll go with it. Look at your worst stat line from each of those 10 games overall and choose that game. I understand your stats line is a difficult place to determine whether or not you actually provided value in a game, but for most folks, I find this is a good place to start. The second step is to analyze what you want to improve specifically. In all roles, the less you die, the more value you can provide to a game. I start with whether my deaths were higher or lower than my average per 10 with that particular hero. If they were higher, I look at why I died most commonly in that game. If they were lower or about average, I move on to the next important stat: eliminations. If my eliminations were lower than my average per 10, I look at each individual fight and determine how I could have provided more value in securing eliminations in those fights. If neither of those were off, I then look at my average per 10 stats for damage as a DPS hero, healing as a support hero, and damage as a tank hero. The third step is to take whatever metric I'm focused on and determine what most commonly was the cause of that lower stat. If I died too much, for instance, take a second to look at each death and determine what caused each one. If I didn't get enough eliminations, I would look at each fight and determine what I could have done to secure more eliminations. As a hint, the most common mistake throughout the ranks that I've seen is your positioning. This is coming from folks well above my rank that have coached contenders teams. Good positioning, simply put, is three things. Can I see my teammates? Can I see the enemies? And do I have natural cover? If I don't have any one of those three things while I'm looking at my gameplay, that's likely the cause for the metric that I'm reviewing being bad. The fourth step is to come up with a simple plan to change the behavior that led to that bad metric. You don't want to make this multiple things, by the way. Keep this to one singular focus, improving one thing at a time. If you're like me, you'll probably notice many more mistakes you could fix, but by simplifying everything and focusing on one thing, you're actually giving yourself a chance to improve. It's never worth sweating more than one thing at once. It becomes incredibly counterproductive. Like I mentioned earlier, I have also found value in keeping this one thing simple. For example, I struggled heavily at the beginning of this journey trying to maintain natural cover. At the time, I wasn't self-VOD reviewing, so my coach encouraged me with this very simple phrase: shoulder to cover. This ended up being a mantra I still repeat to myself on a regular basis, and now it's not nearly as big of an issue in my gameplay. Before I show you how I apply these things in a real-world example, I wanted to take a quick second to thank my patrons. While pursuing this journey, they've helped keep the bills paid, and I'm very thankful. If you also want perks like early access to thumbnails, early access to videos, and even occasional shoutouts and many, many more things, be sure to check out the pinned comment for my Patreon page. All right, so here we are in my game here. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go over here into my history. I'm gonna take the time to look at the last little while. I've been learning Zarya on tank. This game, I tried several different tanks, so let's keep it simple and look at this game on Ilios. Spoiler alert, this one's painful to watch. What you'll notice is that my average per 10 in deaths is 8, and my normal for Zarya is a little over 4, so I've literally doubled my deaths, and my eliminations are not even worth mentioning. So we're gonna choose this game, and we're gonna look for what caused me to die in each of these deaths. I've actually taken a little bit of time to review this game already, and I can tell you this guy, we're gonna be seeing a lot of him. But for now, let's go ahead and move into the first fight. All right, so this moment here you'll see should have been my first hint that he was gonna try something. If you notice what just happened there, it's a little foreshadowing as to what you're about to see, not once, not twice, but more than 2 times. Yeah, that's right, you guessed it. Despite my knowledge of what was about to happen, I still decided to peek a hog who hooked me off of the edge. Lesson learned, don't stand in hook range, certainly when hog is near an edge. Or at least, so I would have you believe it was a lesson learned. I was really excited, but right here, we see a very tragic thing happen a second time, and you can just kind of see that I accept my fate all the way down to my death. Fortunately, in this case, for some reason, They're hog C9s. And I didn't die another time to the hook, so I did learn, played a lot better in this point. Let's move on to the next. Now, I'm going to be honest with you on this next one. I really don't know how I was within range, but you'll see. It happens. You guessed it again. This map is a notorious hog hook map, and I knew that, but he was positioned. I'm like, okay, we're good, we're good, we're good. How does that hook land from that far away? It had to have been right on the edge of his... Oh, it was so painful. At this point, unfortunately, my team tilted. To some degree, I kind of understand it. But they thought that I was throwing. It really wasn't that I was throwing. I'm just bad. There is a bigger lesson to be learned here. Even though you're about to watch this happen a fourth time, what really happened? Was it really that I just don't know hog's hook range? Is it really that I just don't understand that the well has lost many lives because of hog players? Is it really because of those things? No. It's because I tilted. And I learned the hard way in this game that allowing myself to be tilted was the stupidest thing I could have done in my game that day. Surely, the third time though, even being tilted, it wouldn't happen again, would it? You know, even with a grav, I thought, oh, I'm good. I have no idea why, but he's not in range to hook me. Okay, let's look at the soldier. Don't look at the, oh. Yeah. Not my proudest moment there. Not my proudest game either. And unfortunately, because of my excessive hog hook deaths, we lose that second round. This one was less of a, we'll say, skill issue, and more of a, I just wasn't thinking. So I chased this soldier in, get tunnel visioned. Look at my bubble. I'm getting pocketed by Mercy. She's doing a damage boost. This is a good Mercy play. And then I just get absolutely domed. Did you see that health chunk that I lost there? Let's hit play again. Watch this. This is because I tunnel visioned the soldier and then I get wrecked. 2 shots. Absolutely crazy crit hit. And then I die. And guess what? So does my Mercy, because instead of leaving, she just pulls out the Glock. Well, she doesn't die. Good for her. Right here, much like the other death we just saw, I got tunnel visioned. My team starts screaming, we antied the hog, shoot the hog. For some reason, I thought it would be a good idea for me to help them. They totally had that handled. This whole time, I'm getting absolutely rolled by the Reaper. Guess who isn't looking at me? Our Mercy, who, by the way, knows that I'm in a bad spot. Doesn't even bother to look at me. Just continues to pocket the Sojourn. By the way, Mercy also doesn't go for res. So, was this entirely my fault that I died? Of course. Was it entirely my fault that we lost that fight? Absolutely not. There's a little bit of both here. And unfortunately right here, I'd simply die trying to defend the point. We just didn't have the support we needed, and we die. And then they win. Very unfortunate game. So now you might be asking yourself, what could I take from that? Well, I was playing too far forward consistently enough that I died a lot, and my supports were no longer able to support me. Lesson learned. I'll take it into the next games. Oh, make sure you sub. Turn on notifications.